It's bigger than the internet. It's happening so fast. And if you're not using it quickly, you're in big trouble.
There's the people that are going to hear what you said and they're going to interpret it wrong. You tell me stuff, I get so damn excited. I can't sleep. I have to tinker and play and see what comes out of this. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. The guest bringing you today is one of my favorite people on the planet. Truly love this guy. We have such an amazing game of intellectual ping pong. Every time we get together, we just share ideas, go back and forth to just get me buzzing for days. Last time I saw him in person, I actually attended this event that he had, this AI accelerator event. And it was interesting because before I attended this event, I said to myself, AI is going to be disrupting the world in no less than 12 months. And just people are not prepared. After that event, I realized that anything that I ever imagined that could happen with AI is already possible. And we're only ultimately limited by our imagination. Now, that disruption at what I once thought was maybe 12 months has been now accelerated. It could be 6 months, it could be 9 months, it could be even sooner for that matter. The limitation is how quickly will it take for people to understand and your market to understand and use it and leverage this and so forth. And that's really going to be the big separator because everything already exists right now. That's what we want to talk about today. We want to talk about the different possibilities that exist within AI. Now, I know there's a lot of AI gurus and experts and everything out there. This person was a little bit different. He just got back from NASA. In fact, last week he was speaking at NASA and taught the NASA folks something that they weren't even sure was possible. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. He's also spoke to the United Nations. And if that's not enough proof that our guest is, well, a little different than maybe some of those other quote unquote experts, then I don't know what to tell you. His client list reads like the who's who of people. He's been on stages all across the world. Look, let's not waste any more time just telling you all about how awesome this guy is. I just want to show you how awesome he is. Mike Koenigs, welcome to the show, brother.
Hello, sir. Always good to be here with you. So exciting. And yeah, the world's moving so fast. It's scary, and I wouldn't want it to be a moment faster, but at the same time, never a dull moment. That's for sure.
You know, when you think about it, we last got together, what was it, maybe, I don't know, 6 weeks ago? I don't know. I can't remember how long it's been, but
yeah,
so much has changed so quickly. The gap between where AI was 6 weeks ago to where it is now has widened so much. I think what I'm most interested in is understanding like how much things have widened, what has changed, what's possible, why should people pay attention to what's going on right now, disruptions. Would you talk about a NASA that is that you could share? I could go on and on and on, but
yeah,
like what's changed over the last, several weeks as an example?
yeah. Well, I'll tell you, there's a couple major ones, and one of the best ways to frame this is what just happened at NASA. So here's the setup. When I spoke at the United Nations a few months ago, that came from, they wanted to know, like, how is AI affecting business and women's equality and entrepreneurship worldwide? And basically what I did is I did a presentation at the time where I've never spoken to an audience like that. So there were 40 different nations represented. I don't know how many cultures, a lot of languages, all dealing with this problem of like women's inequality worldwide. How do they tell their story, make a difference, start a business, get some kind of support, whether it's financial support or buy-in from a group? And what I did is I used ChatGPT to manufacture a story. I had 4 hours to get them a bio and a script. I had 10 minutes to present, okay? And I was They're presenting 30 hours later. That's how
Wow.
quickly the whole thing went down. And if it weren't for AI, there's no way I could have done it. I did the equivalent of what normally would have been a 30-hour presentation prep to do something that's that short. And what I was able to do is create the presentation, make it relevant, create a synthetic video of me presenting. So it's kind of like make a TED talk of me speaking. And where everyone else went over by minutes, which of course they're doing everything to cut them off, I finished my presentation start to finish in 8.5 minutes, which never happens at the United Nations.
Wow.
Right. And basically what the real answer to the question, what's changed? So what I did is I used ChatGPT to create my bio, create the presentation, be able to craft it specifically for the audience because I had a list of who would be there. So I was able to touch on every cultural nuance,
Wow.
something that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Had visuals, auditory, handouts to give to everyone. Again, no one else did that level of preparation. And again, I had 30 hours, a true impossibility. And I used a tool called InVideo to create a synthetic video also that they had as a giveaway. So you fast forward to NASA a week ago, the setup for that one was we had a few weeks to prepare, which was really good. I had 30 minutes, and the focus was how is NASA going to solve its 174 documented biggest problems? And it is of national security concerns that we get back to moon and have a habitat there before China and Russia, and also move on to Mars. And for example, one of the problems that you have when you're in space is your respiratory system fails. So basically, what I demonstrated is I used a bank of 10 different development AIs to prototype functioning software, some of which I had running in 20 minutes right in front of a NASA director. And like it was 4 months worth of work. And to say that jaws dropped is an understatement. So
Now, just for
I can only,
context, what do
yeah.
you
So
know about the actual topic? Like, you have no background, you have no
yeah,
degree in anything related to this, right?
I barely
Mm.
passed high school. I was teaching alongside an MIT teacher, and everyone in that room was highly qualified academia, scientists, space investors. I'm the kid from the wrong side of the tracks. Grew up next door to a trailer park, so highly unqualified. But I knew how to wrangle the AIs and eke out the story. So what I really showed them was with the help of an AI, you can prototype a software solution in under an hour that it's a functional MVP. You can create synthetic videos that tell a story better than humans can, faster, and not replace, but augment storytelling, filmmaking, animation crews. And I can show you how I open the show if you'd like to see
Oh,
that. And then
thanks.
for those who are listening, I'll describe it.
Let's do it.
Okay. So, again, getting back to the real answer to your question is what's changed. Literally the night before I went on stage, one of the platforms called Replit upgraded its platform, which writes code, and now it self debugs. So you can give it an
Mm.
outcome, and the agents refine and test and refine and test until it actually has a usable product. It was mind blowing to say the least. And so what I did is I inserted that in the night before. It was a lot, but
No pressure.
so here's the setup. So in the background, you can see this took place at Amazon headquarters in Arlington, Virginia. That's Dragana, who I spoke with, and all the little animations you see in the background, I created 4 hours before I was on stage, just create using a new Google tool called VEO3. And all I did is said, create a background animation that I can loop of the sands of Mars with winds, and I made this beautiful thing. And then I had an opening animation that wanted to illustrate what NASA's off-world challenges are, which are what are the challenges of living on Mars, growing food, mental health, power, education and training, sanitation, exploration and mining, and then creating what they call a Martian digital twin, a
Um,
synthetic
Let me stop you
simulated.
right here
Yeah,
because this is pretty
yeah,
cool. One of the problems that many people have, including myself, when creating an image like this is the spelling is always all off, right? You tell them this is what I
Uh,
want, but then the spelling is off and whatnot. So how did you do this with such precision?
yeah. And you'll notice that there is one mistake. I actually left it in there on purpose, which it says mental health twice. That because right in the beginning, I basically said AI is deeply flawed. So I made that a feature instead of a bug. But the answer was, as of the time we're recording this, a week ago, Google came out with its latest visual model, which has been codenamed Nano Banana.
Hmm.
And it does a much better job dealing with text. But here's the answer to your question. I always run at least three models. One is one called Ideogram.
Yep.
That does really good text. A second one is GenSpark has an image generator that's really, really good. And then in parallel, I will run Google's Nano Banana, which is now it's called Flash 2.5 image generator. That's the technical description.
Got it.
So, and it might take running the same prompt three times in three models.
Okay.
And then I just picked the best one.
Got it. Cool.
Yeah. So over answered your question, but the answer is it's not that simple because AI still pukes on text. It's getting better. I just tried something with Midjourney this morning and it just repeatedly choked. At this moment, GenSpark Visual Designer is the best I've found.
Got it.
So again, part of the story here was I wanted to encapsulate and right away get the audience inspired. And a lot of this copy came from all it was is about a 30-minute conversation I had with the director of NASA who is putting this event on, who I interviewed. Her name's Crystal Johnson. And I just had her pitch us and tell us what their biggest problems were, what they needed to overcome. And that built a full curriculum. And what I'm showing you now is, how are we going to solve NASA's biggest challenges? How to use generative AI to do that? Dropping this notion of how super agents are so powerful to help you think ahead, plan, and do your work for you. This is, to me, the future. And then using a super agent mindset, really, it's a genius network mindset of creating real apps and automations, and then storytelling with AI, because you could be the best app developer in the world, but if you can't tell your story, you're completely hosed. And then our outcome was we gave everyone a guide, a playbook, and we encouraged them to build apps while they were there so they could
Wow.
workshop and compete. And, NASA, one of the things that I think we're raised to believe, at least our generation was, is NASA's this untouchable thing. And NASA's can be incredibly approachable. They are, in fact, a springboard for entrepreneurship. They have a lot of IP that they wish to share and make available that we have, as taxpayers, have paid for, but they need help bringing it to market. So, part of what they were inspired by was this possibility. So if we move forward a little bit, I mentioned this at the very beginning. One of the core problems that happens when you're up in space is as soon as you launch out of orbit, our respiratory systems kind of need gravity, and our respiratory system quits working properly. And if you get on the lunar surface, the lunar dust is going to get through everything eventually. It can kill you. Mars is worse. Okay. So I asked AI what was a big problem that we could solve, and it invented an idea called cough sense. So what I'm going to play now, for those who are listening, you'll be able to hear the narrative. For you watching it, everything you're about to see was created in less than 40 minutes, me tweaking and learning how to use some of these new visual tools, including the narrative and the music. So I'll play it, and then you can ask some questions about it.
On the moon or Mars, every breath matters. Dust, radiation, and confined habitats silently stress the lungs. Astronauts often don't realize their respiratory health is changing until it's too late. Cough Sense is a simple, non-invasive way to track breathing health over time. By analyzing coughs and voice patterns, it spots early warning signs, shifts in frequency, tone, and recovery that astronauts may not feel themselves. With Cough Sense, crews gain autonomy in monitoring their own wellness without waiting on Earth for analysis. It's a safety net that helps protect missions, performance, and lives.
So all that was I told ChatGPT to write me a pitch video for an app
Wow.
that it came up with the idea for. And then I used a tool called GenSpark, and I said, now make me visual images and storyboard this for me. And then each one became a little segment. I stretched it together. I fed the narration, the script into a tool called 11 Labs. And then I made the music using a tool called Suno. Like I said, this whole thing back to back and took me 40 minutes.
Mike,
Um,
you know what I hate about you? I genuinely
yeah.
hate this about you, all right?
All right.
Every time I have a conversation with you, I don't go to bed that night. I end up you tell me stuff. I get so damn excited. I can't sleep. I have to tinker and play and see
Oh
what
my
comes
God.
out of this. I mean, and it's because it's not about the tinkering, it's about the possibilities. When you see the possibilities, when you see what can happen, like it's exciting. You want to play, you want to see what you can create. I mean, this is cool. So you talked about GenSpark, 11 Labs, Nano Banana,
Yep.
ChatGPT,
Suno for music. Yep.
Suno. I love Suno. Ideogram. You talked about all that stuff. Are you
Yes.
the one thing you mentioned, you talked about super agent in your presentation. Can you
Yes.
explain, like, what is a super agent?
So I'm going to go through a list of super agents and explain what they are. But the more important thing is like what they do and how you can use them. You'll actually get a list of them so you can see it for yourself. But we're also going to give everyone a guide because we're going to have AI turn this podcast into a step-by-step guide for everyone who's listening.
Sweet.
So first of all, I'll go through and I'll make this fairly fast because the visual is more impactful than the what. Because I said this right across the top. I'm completely agnostic about the tools. Some of the tools that I literally started using 4 days ago.
Yeah.
So ChatGPT is always my go-to. That's my Swiss Army knife that lets me develop fast. GenSpark is a super agent. It basically is really smart and it can perform an enormous number of functions. So you can go to GenSpark right now and it can create documents for you, spreadsheets, videos, audios. It develops apps even. It's like, it
It's
is
really good.
so good, mind-blowingly good, and they're adding new capabilities every week, like
It's probably my
significant rollout.
favorite. GenSpark is phenomenal.
Yep. I use Claude still for copy, although lately I've been extremely disappointed with it. The code is okay, but not directly from the console. In other words, tools that use Claude are good, but it's a good copywriting. Another super agent that is really good is Lovable, and this
Yeah.
thing writes code. Replit is a really good code generator. Rourke is something most people haven't even heard of. I didn't, but it builds iOS, Apple and Android apps. Base 44, another code generator called Rocket.new. That one came out days ago. And then Google has their AI Studio, which in my experience is kind of meh. I fight with it the most out of all these models.
Mm.
So that's the baseline. But the biggest super agents right now that I go to regularly, and what I just showed you now are the development tools. But when you talk about super agents, GenSpark, Abacus, Kimi, Kimi, and Manus are the big ones that I use all the time. And what I'm about to show you is both how I work with these tools, but also how I code with them. So if you see my screen, and if you can't, it's okay. I basically told ChatGPT to write me code to create code scent or cough sense. And I basically pasted in the script and said, now make this. So I took the code and I pasted it into ChatGPT, Claude, GenSpark, Rourke, Google's Gemini, Base 44, Rocket.new, and the exact same prompt in all of them. I hit the enter key and said, now spin it up and show me what you got. So presently, my mechanism for solving every problem is get 10 high IQ PhD geniuses to do it all at the same time and have them fight. And that's basically what I taught at the last AI accelerator was why would you sit around and wait for one thing to finish when 10 of them could be working on the same problem? And what you'll see in a moment is each one of these approach the problem completely differently. They created different user interfaces and started inventing things I didn't even ask for. Okay, so now what I'm showing on screen was sped up. So some of this took place over a period of about 40 minutes, but some of these things coded and had a functional prototype in as little as 20 minutes.
Wow.
So ChatGPT built a super ugly user interface that wasn't very good. GenSpark added something that was pretty impressive. So this thing will see, you can see a spectrum analyzer at the bottom. When I clicked on the record button and it recorded the audio, and then it made this kind of cool trend alert report. Claude.ai, I had to fight with like crazy. It created a super ugly user interface, but it did show, a waveform analysis tool.
Mm.
And then if we move on to the next tool, which is Lovable, it also came up with a completely different approach. Some of the functionality didn't completely work. So for example, the audio level monitor or spectrum analyzer, it wouldn't build it. But once I got one of them to work, I started sharing code with the other tools.
Mhm.
And it would adopt the code from something else. And here you can see, it built a really good display component, a report component. So just like imagine if you had 4 or 5 or 10 developers working on the same problem at the same time, what that would enable you to do is look at the results and say, hey, I love what you did here, share it with this team. And you don't have to be a developer to develop code now. You don't have to be a user interface designer to be a really good user interface designer. And my son, Zach, took the same strategy. He created and launched a business for a guy who was at the last event. Oh, here, I'm going to stop here for a moment. What you're looking at right now is Rourke. It built a functional iPhone app.
Wow.
All right. Mind blowing. Mind blowing.
Would build our landing pages over Lovable. And it was frustrating for me because there were things I wanted to change that I was like, how do I do this? And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute. I went to ChatGPT and I wanted it to act as an expert with Lovable and solve for the problem that I couldn't solve.
Yeah.
And it told me exactly what instructions I needed to tell Lovable. And then it suddenly solved it.
Yes. And that's really the Mac method, which is tell me how to do it or show me how to do it for me, and then show me how to improve it. Now, what just happened since last week, Replit came out with a version 3.0 that is so smart, it actually debugs itself. So what happened up until a week ago with all of these tools is it builds something, but then you had to test it and you'd be like, oh, I hate the way this works, or I hate it'll actually self-debug now and get something that works and is functional. So the end result was, and here again, this is Google AI Studio. The only good piece of code that it generated was the spectrum analyzer, which is what I grabbed from that and I shared it with the other code. And I said, the spectrum analyzer code, implement it for me. Just put it in here. And I, at the time, I didn't even think about adding that. It just seemed like a cool thing to provide. So, and some of these things flat out didn't work. I argue with it and it broke, but who cares?
Right.
8 of them kind of worked. 3 of them worked really well. And within a week, most of them were generating better code than all the other ones were before.
Wow.
And so again, it was, to me, profound. And this is Rocket. What you're looking at right now is this rocket.new, which again came out of nowhere. I just happened to bump into a YouTube video, some guy talking about it. I'm like, what the heck's this? Took my prompt in, fed it in, and it built a really good version of the product. And the reason it did such a good job right away is because after I had been trying to get ChatGPT to code for me, I said, now give me a description of everything that I've talked to you about to make this product better since the initial prompt, and give me that in one summarized list. So it basically was as though I took all the training I had done from all the models and stuffed it into one thing. I know this sounds complicated, but the end result is it it's it really turns into the step-by-step progression. You don't have to be technical to take advantage of it. And this is a microcosm of the macrocosm, which is if you can imagine it, you can make it real.
Yeah, it's amazing. And now you've got tools so where they will actually do the work for you. For
Yep.
example, we had a follow-up from one of our events that we wanted to do, and we wanted to send out 100 personalized emails one at a time, not from, because it had to be personalized.
Yep.
And so we pulled up a spreadsheet and I could watch it work. It would take the person, find something personal, add it to a spreadsheet. Then it would write the email, log into my email account. And I just said, draft it and let me press send. So it would draft it. And then I just waited to press send, and it did everything because I needed to get done. Didn't have time to assign it to someone.
Yeah. And which tool did you use for that one?
That one was Comet from Perplexity.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've been using the Comet browser. That's my shortcut for doing all this code stuff, so because you could just give it a command and say, hey, open these 10 tools in a separate tab for me.
So
you don't have to do it individually.
that's what you did. I knew you were doing something.
Normally, what you'd have to do is open up each one of these individual browser windows so you could actually get them all to do what you want to do, which is a giant, stupid pain in the butt. And it's just it's like repetitive stress injury waiting to happen. That's
There
the
you're
way I think
right.
of. Yeah, it's so annoying. Little new tool, and with it, I just give it a command that says open each of these tools in a browser tab. And what it would do then is go off on its own and do exactly that. So I'm going to show it on screen. This is a list of all of the tools that I used. Okay. So there's ChatGPT, GenSpark, Lovable, Claude, Replit, Rourke, AI Studio, Base 44, Rocket, and this Abacus tool. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 of them.
Yeah.
That prompt with that list, hit enter, and it opens them all up. And then now, as of a couple of weeks ago, you couldn't say, now take this prompt and paste it into all of the tools and hit enter for me. But the future of all this is having these agent browsers. You're going to be able to give any of them a command, and just like you said, write me the emails and create something, but put it in my draft. Yeah, I don't want to give you permission to send it for me. I wouldn't trust these tools for that. But the greater mindset part of this is, I think we're so born and bred to give up our agency at such an early age, where most of the time it's like, I wonder how to do blank.
Yeah.
How do I do blank? We're always giving up our agency to a higher education or some guru or something. And now you've got this genius sitting in your pocket that you can press a button and not just say, how do you do this? But tell me what would be a better way to accomplish my outcome. And then, turn that into a prompt and then do it for me.
Mhm.
That is taking back your agency by giving up control and giving up the illusion that you need to know how to do everything.
Yeah.
And it'd be the equivalent of when a founder finally realizes they can hire a really, really good operator, a really good integrator, COO, who's looking out for your best interests and thinking and anticipating ahead for you. And that really is, I think, the next level of AI is, I want you to think ahead for me and warn me ahead of times of things that I'm not thinking about, so I can spend all my time doing what I'm great at and love to do.
There's the people that are going to hear what you said and they're going to interpret it wrong. And then there's the kind of people that hear what you say and they're going to leverage this. And this is where we're going to start seeing this great divide. You're already starting to see this great divide. You're seeing some people get dumber. And as a result of that, their performance is going to continue to fall. And they're going to start saying things like, hey, that doesn't work, and all this other stuff. And then you're going to get some people that get exponentially smarter. And there's a really fine line between letting AI do the thinking for you and using AI to amplify your thinking. And I think that's a really fine line, because you see people right now that are like, write me an email. And it's like cut and paste, or design a marketing strategy for me. And it's like, let's just follow it, cut and paste. And it's like, that's where it's like, wait a minute, but I let AI do the thinking for me. But those are the people that are taking the downward trajectory. There's a way that you use it to amplify your thinking. So can you lean in on that a little bit? Because
Yeah.
that's a very dangerous sort of pivot that I think people need to understand.
Yeah. Well, I think every technology will make stupid, lazy people stupider and lazier.
Yeah.
And it'll make really, really smart, anticipatory, curious people 10 times more effective.
Mhm.
And the mobile phone's a really good example of that. So's the internet, so was email. There was a time when you did something longhand and you had to write a letter, you're a lot more likely to think ahead and take the time, because if you mess something up, you'd have to redo the whole damn thing. And then there was whiteout, which took away sins to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Something with a typewriter. And, laying something out with a typewriter, or for that matter, any layout, it's what PageMaker did and Quark Express to the page layout industry, because it wasn't too long ago when we were using wax and X-Acto blades to create a newsletter
Yeah.
and doing key stuff literally. And the old news, what do they call it? A yearbook at a high school was a lot of work. It took a year to make it.
Yeah.
It was like,
Oh, yeah.
and then pretty soon you could collaborate. And you think about what happened when we had file sharing and being able to type in real time into a document versus me work on it and then email it to you and I'd have to wait.
Right.
So
Right.
there's collaboration, but there's also this in level of lack of clear-headedness and thinking ahead that takes place, because we have infinite undos. Now with a phone, if you'd hand a really smart person, really need their team because if it happened 100 years ago, but just imagine what could have happened to war and science, relationships, if a certain group of people had a mobile phone with access to the internet, what an unfair advantage they'd have. And yet we've got an entire population that's addicted to TikTok and Instagram, and all they do is swipe, swipe, swipe while they're not paying attention to their jobs.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think, again, the multiplication of stupid is happening at a unbelievable hockey stick level right now. And it's why UBI is stupid.
UBI?
Universal basic income.
Oh,
the whole idea
got
of
it.
giving out free money to people to do nothing
Yeah.
it will be the end of society as we know it.
Mhm.
It's basically mass welfare for doing nothing, learning nothing, knowing nothing, and creating zero
Isn't
value.
that Wall-E? Wasn't that almost what was based that movie? Wall-E,
Yeah,
right?
basically, yeah. Have the robots do everything.
Yeah,
That is deep
people eventually
thought.
just gave up walking, and it was like chairs that moved them around different places. There were zombies.
Well, it's kind of like scooters at Walmart. When you worship the obese getting into jets before people who pay for it. I know that sounds cruel. It's not my intent, but at some point, you've just got to say, look at the incentive system to lie and pushed into a tube in the sky.
It's crazy.
Did I take it too far there?
The point that you're making ultimately is just that there's an incentive system. What is it? Warren Buffett's partner, Charlie Munger, right?
Yeah.
Where he says, if you want to know how somebody will perform, show me their incentive system, right? And incentives have got like this double-edged sword. And actually it does breed laziness. If you make it too easy, for someone and they lose their motivation, if their motivation, like you're going to take an aspirational people. It's like, I give you $1 billion. I know you right off the bat, you're going to say, how do I turn this into 2 billion? Right. Then you get somebody who wins the lottery and they turn around and they're bankrupt in, a few years.
Less than 5 years. Yeah.
Well, and I think ultimately the point that you were trying to make, it's like,
Yes.
you're going to give people this. It's like winning the lottery. You're going to have those people that are going to turn around and say, I'm going to take this, and they're going to double it.
That's exactly right.
You're going to have those other people that are inadvertently going to bankrupt themselves because they're using the tool in the wrong sort of direction.
Yeah. Instead of using it as a thinking and a capability amplifier, it's worse than a crutch, which is when you stop thinking because of the tool. And, and just to backpedal a little bit, I'm all for socially conscious welfare. I think we have to have backstops. And I think it's really important that we have public education and public broadcasting because some people,
Sure. I
you
get
gotta take care of the poor and the ignorant and bring them out. And then reinforcing, as you would say, bad behavior is another thing. And I think that is if there ever is something I'm terrified about AI, is this is happening so quickly. And this is where, the bridge to what are you going to do about it? I think as business owners, as
yeah.
founders, as if you're responsible, you have to just see the writing on the wall and say, this is as big as fire. It's bigger than the internet. It's happening so fast. And if you're not using it quickly, you're in big trouble. And I think the next big thing, there's been a period of time, it's still happening, where employees could be justifiably terrified, especially if they are lazy and they don't do work and they don't learn and aren't curious, that they will be replaced by someone who uses the tools. It's like saying to someone coming in and saying, I refuse to type, I refuse to use the internet, I refuse to use a
Yeah.
computer, but I want a job, right?
Yeah.
You'd never hire that person.
Right.
Or I'm not going to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
going to work at home and not be accountable. Well, that ain't going to work.
right.
But that's effectively what I'm not going to learn or use
Or you
AI
won't
is
use the
like.
calculator. I'm not going to use a calculator. Or, I'm not going to use a computer. I'm not going to use email.
Yes.
I'm not going to use a cell phone. You put yourself at a disadvantage.
And founders who don't create AI friendly workspaces and workforces and know what's possible are going to start losing their teams and their employees, because it's going to be such a massive unfair advantage. So a culture of AI, I think, is one of the next deep conversations that's going to be taking place in every workforce.
And it's actually
Every
a lot easier than people might think. It can even start with as simple as please familiarize yourself with, I'm going to just throw a random example out there. Please familiarize yourself with predictable profits. Visit predictableprofits.com, understand the services, the avatar in the industry, and then follow up with,
Yep.
I'm a B2B salesperson for Predictable Profits. In what ways will my role be disrupted by the year 2030? And then I'll talk to you about the disruptions, then be like, what are the skills, the abilities that I need to develop in order to remain relevant? And how do I start now? Create a plan, all this other stuff. But even something as simple like that,
Yes.
it's just all of a sudden now you understand the lights now turning on in the future. Now you understand where it might go. You may want to run that prompt every month because it's going to change. And then just constantly be learning and developing and whatnot, and encourage all your employees, whether you're an executive assistant or you're the CEO, like look for these things and look at how your industry is going to change and just run it, and then bring it up for conversation and debate it and
Yes.
discuss it.
This is an absolutely defining moment where that mindset, what you just described right now, which is AI as your meta coach, is just going to be as normal and natural as logging on and checking your email or checking your messages every day on your phone. It's having a tighter, deeper relationship with something that's with you all the time. And yes, this will be abused. Yes, it will be messed with. But I always will say more tools in the tool belt with the proper training and knowing what to use and when is advantageous.
Yeah.
And I think there's a need to master the mindset of AI, not the tools, because the tools are going to be replaceable
Agreed.
and they're going to constantly evolve.
Ag-
And that is going to continue to be disconcerting, just like I think the move from riding a horse to using a car. And then, the first time you use an electric car, or if you haven't used self-driving yet, and like
You
how
got the whammo.
odd, weird that feels, but I guarantee you're going to put a young person in a car and that will be the new normal, just like sitting in a Waymo is.
It's unbelievable. I know there are people who haven't used it that are nervous. I know there are people that are using it that are only scratching the surface. And I know that there's people here that they're experts at using it. I actually don't think you can be an expert, so to speak. It's moving so fast. I think you're just really, really, really good. But then tomorrow, if you're not always leaning in, then you're quickly going to learn or lose that expert status. I know we're pushing up against the clock, Mike. I could literally, like we have in the past, talk with you for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, we went down the rabbit hole, that's for sure. I hope that wasn't way too nerdy and losing a bunch of people. Hopefully they hear the excitement, the possibility, and the opportunity,
Well,
not the technical mumbo jumbo.
and I think that's the whole point is just open your mind. This is where we're at right now as in the world is opening our minds up for opportunity, for possibility, and just seeing
Mhm.
what the options are. Cause it's so foreign. It's not like somebody paved the way, 2 years, 3 years in advance. So much of this is happening right now in real time. The best way to take advantage of it is just to be part of the conversation. End of
Mhm.
story. Be part of the conversation. Be, as you talked about earlier, intellectually curious. Just
Yeah.
start playing. I'm not a coder. I'm not a tech guy. I'm not any of this stuff, but it's like riding a bike. The more you do it, the more you see, oh, this is what worked. This is what didn't work. You play with the different tools, you get better and better and better. And now I'd like to think that, I'm better than most because I've used it since
Will
even before the world knew what AI was. Maybe it was you who initially brought it to me. I'm not sure, but we were tinkering with this stuff before anybody knew what ChatGPT was,
totally.
right? So,
Yep.
Mike, speaking of being part of the conversation,
Yep.
right? You actually have, and I went to your last one. I'm hoping that I'm actually able to attend again to this other one. Would you mind actually talking a little bit about this AI Accelerator Live?
Yes. Yes. So, and while we talk about this, I'll mention the link that we set up for you and your folks. It's at aiaccelerator.com/live Charles. So it is a 2-day in-person workshop, either live or virtual. The benefits to the live, like you witnessed, was I encouraged, so when you get a ticket, it's for you as an in-person. And I always say founders first. Founders need to be in the room, even if you don't even intend to do it, because one of your implementers can be on with you live, virtually, or we've got a VIP option where it can be you and a integrator or implementer or a business partner, and then 2 tickets for your implementers. And the best way to learn AI is to do little sprints. So and the way we teach is we open up with, AI is your superpower accelerator. So it's get your time back, learn the best tools that do the most for you in the least amount of time. What we did last time, it'll be totally different.
Hmm.
So get your time back is number one, and simplify your life and amplify your superpowers. The second is your one person marketing team. So it's how to create, like what I was demonstrating. Like my son got a job in a week developing a software product. He's not a programmer. He made the video and a business plan, and it's really good. So good. I was like, I can't believe this is my kid good. My nephew, who was at the same event, got a job and did a virtually similar thing, solved a $100,000 a year penalty problem for the guy who gave him the job in the first week. And then he's going on to solve other problems already. So the net is it's we show you how to do it, we give you a manual, we demonstrate with use cases, and then you do it, and then we talk to each other about what we learned. That is the best way to learn AI in the shortest period of time that has the most impact, because you cannot walk out unaffected. And the greatest lessons you learn are when you observe and listen to other people and their breakthroughs. You're like, God, I never would have thought of that.
Mm.
The beauty of the speed, the accelerant speed of this now is just how wonderfully it's like what you said the first night when you came back and you said, "Well, you jackass, I didn't sleep at all." I'm like, "Thank you." It's like you cannot walk away uninspired in an environment like that. And when you see what 18, we had some people who were 18, we had 80-year-olds in the room.
It's pretty wild.
It's pretty wild. But I mean, what was your biggest favorite takeaway that left the most impact that you've been able to monetize?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was familiar with many of the tools, but it was the way that you use them that I was
Mm,
like, oh, that was interesting. I didn't think about that way. So it was like, the advantage today is not actually the person who has all the answers. And I think That's another really important point that I have to hammer home over and over again. It's something that I've told my kids because, my kids are in school, they're taught to memorize and all this other stuff. And I was like, guys, the advantage today and the advantage of the future is not going to be the person who has all the answers. It's going to
Hmm.
be the person who knows to ask the questions that nobody else thinks to ask. And building that creativity muscle, that way that your brain goes somewhere that it hasn't been before. And not answers, but questions. Hey, you talk about the biggest takeaway. It was the number of questions that I got from being in that event that I was like, ooh, it just really lit up that intellectual curiosity that I wanted to explore further and further and further, which led to more questions and more answers. And I ended up getting into this place that I've never been before and opportunities that never seen before that became
Yeah.
really, really, really exciting.
Yeah. I think what I've witnessed since, and right before we did this interview, I was on with John Kissel and my nephew Owen, and then I was dialoguing with my son Zach in the background. Since that live event, Vivian, who was our featured guest when we talked about the one person marketing team,
Yep.
she created the basics for her next act, which is the Bad Mom podcast. When we did a little simulation, we created a simulated pitch video for it. Well, she's launching it tomorrow.
Amazing.
So since the event, she's completely reinvented herself and she's doing this high impact program that deals with parents who are dealing with kids who have got screen addiction, social media addiction, chemical addiction, anxiety, overwhelm, depression, suicidal iteration, and how to deal with this because no matter what you do, you feel like a bad parent. So
Mm.
if you don't do enough, you're a bad parent. If you do too much, you're a bad parent. Just talk to your therapist.
Mm.
And we've lived the nightmare and we have so many friends. This is the silent pain every parent has. And if it weren't for these AI tools, Vivian wouldn't have been able to put this together as fast as she did. She wouldn't have the tools she's put together, and she did it with a minimal team coming from a nonprofit background.
The impact that she's made in the world and the humans and what she's done. And I didn't realize, I knew she was great. I was taken back by the impact, and it's really fun.
She'll be back. It'll be a family affair again. So Owen and John are there. Zach will be there. He's actually going to do a presentation on this whole mentor apprenticeship platform he's created.
Oh, awesome.
He'll he just got hired by the Tony Robbins organization to make videos for them because someone inside saw what he made and they're like, this tool gives you access to opportunities you couldn't dream of.
Yeah.
That is, and I know it sounds like, oh yeah, well, it's easy for you, Mike. Like, I didn't come from anything special. I never would have dreamed I'd ever speak at the UN. Or 2 years ago, I couldn't have dreamed something like this would have happened for my son, that he'd mature this quickly and glom onto a tool this powerful, and then see ways to create deeper, more meaningful relationships with human beings and be a better communicator too. And that's what I think this is, has the opportunity to be a weapon or one of the most magnificent tools in human history. And the hallucination I choose to see is the one of the positive.
Yeah. Well, think about what you just talked about too. In many ways, this AI created a leveling playing field. The fact that your son, Zach, without any coding background or anything for that matter, can now, create a massive opportunity to work inside of a wonderful organization as Tony Robbins. But you know what? 5 years ago, in order for
Mhm.
him to have had that opportunity, he would have had to go to college to get a specialized degree, have
Yeah.
3 years, 5 years, 10 years of experience, then have to go in and apply for this. And so that door would have never been open to him without all of that training and all of that background and all the specialization and degree. Anybody can do anything that they want right now. But then, while it's a leveling playing field, the leveler is going to be how intellectual curious are you going to be?
Yes.
Right. The fact that
That
he even knew to ask the questions, the answers were there. He just needed to know what questions to ask.
I didn't give him this opportunity. I think this is like, he's super, super sensitive about being a Nepo baby. He just part of the reason he's so excited about this opportunity and this platform he's creating is because he never wants to be seen that way. He really wanted to, and he did earn this. Now he did happen to be in the right room, but I didn't give it to him.
Yeah.
Much less the Tony opportunity was just a conversation. I showed it, and it was like, holy crap! Like he earned it on the basis of meritocracy, which is he had a skill and an ability to communicate something unique and special in an exceptionally short period of time that really can give anyone hope for more possibility. And how important is that right now? More than anything, is we just need a booster, more hope, and the ability to communicate and connect on a deeper, more meaningful level.
Yeah. Well,
And
everybody,
that excites me.
the game of life, we've got all these different cards in our hands, right? And,
Hmm.
sometimes we have aces, sometimes we have kings, sometimes we just get four of a kind of whatever. But it's just a matter of realizing, like, what are the cards that we have in our hand, and just play the best hands that we've been dealt. And if that means he gets to be in a room, that's the hand he's been dealt. Is he going to maximize that hand, or is he going to fold because he was given an ace when, he felt he deserved a 10, right? It's like,
Yeah.
play the best hand. Do what you can. Play the best hand that you have and make it better,
Yes.
right?
Uh,
We're going personal before we get off, but I just want to say this because you're such an extraordinary guy. I love you to bits and whatnot. But what you have done is you've created shoulders for your son to stand on. And I really want Zach to understand that you've spent so much time. Your heart is always in this place that you cheer for everybody to become more successful, to be happier and healthier and get more love and more everything. That's the environment of the type of person that you are. You're so focused on wanting to provide more and give more to everybody else. I understand where your son's coming from, but at the same time, it's like you actually want him to stand on your shoulders. You want him to be more successful than you. You want him to have more opportunity than you. Like, now it's up to him to be willing to stand on the shoulders.
hmm
Every dad's dream, or every parent's dream, every mom's dream, every dad's dream, good parents want to create a platform for their child to become more successful. They should.
Yeah.
And you've
Yeah.
spent so much time and effort trying to create that platform. I would encourage him to stand on those shoulders, because the
Hmm.
impact that he can make by standing on your shoulders is going to be bigger than if he was to choose not to stand on your shoulders. He doesn't have to choose the
Well,
same path. He chooses his own path, but leverage the platform. Anyway, I'm
yeah.
going.
That no, that's and that is a burden that I couldn't imagine that he certainly feels and experiences, which is he's really fought back so he earns it and gets it himself.
He's such.
And it's perception, it just as much as anything that is that, and I've seen that as a struggle because you and I worked hard to build and grow
Yeah.
and get where we are, just as a lot of first generation founders, often so many people I know, they were the first to go to college or the first to make $1 million or be a millionaire
Yeah.
in their families. And then hell breaks loose with the children who are raised in that gifted environment,
Yeah.
who don't feel like they've earned it or haven't and don't know what to do with it, et cetera, all the burdens that go along with it. And these are important conversations to have.
Yeah.
They really are. And again, I don't have all the answers, but I know that these tools have been so freaking profound for us in making what seemed undreamable, dreamable, and impossible possible.
For sure. Again, I could keep talking to you forever and ever and ever.
Me too.
And
Yeah.
now we're
Well,
going
we'll do
personal.
more.
We could carry on for another hour, but I know you got places to go.
Accelerator.com/live Charles. And then there's a coupon code too, because one thing we didn't talk about, there's a virtual option. And here's what I'd encourage you to do. If you have a young person in your life who you really, really, really wish they'd get exposed to this kind of thinking. And we did have a number of, you remember it, we
Yeah.
had fathers and sons, or fathers and daughters, and moms and daughters and sons, and we also had them virtual. And with no exceptions, they just said that was one of the most profound things that ever happened.
Yeah.
I had an 80-year-old there with a 36-year-old son, and the son came up to me crying at the end saying, "This is like one of the most pivotal, profound moments of my life." So, yeah, and we've continued the convo. So, yeah, it's aiaccelerator.com/live Charles. There's a coupon code. It's bird500. You'll get $500 off. So, come virtual, come live. There's an opportunity to upgrade for VIP. And if you end up coming live, I'm doing a bonus, and you've seen this before. You get, we call it the $1,000 cup of coffee with Mike.
Oh
That's
yeah.
means we meet in person, and I often prototype product ideas, new opportunities, people show up, but that's included as a bonus if you choose to come live as a throw it in. You also get recordings from the last event, so you'll be able to come and be prepared and witness what Charles did, but also get a head start on what we're going to be teaching you and doing live.
Yeah, it's super cool. Anybody that's followed the podcast for a long time, I don't think I've ever actually, I don't think I've ever promoted or endorsed whatever, the product to the best of my knowledge and recollection. So for me to be able to say this and to endorse you as a human, but also as one of my most important thought leaders, the fact that I got so much out of that last event, and it's part of the conversation that is mandatory today to have that advantage in the future. Part of that mandatory conversation. I enjoy every second I get to spend with you. We got to do this more often. Any last parting words, Mike, before we jump off?
I think we live in a time when there's more abundance accessible to more people than ever before. And this does require a new model of thinking, how we were raised by giving up our agency. And I wouldn't have understood what came out of my mouth until I heard it over and over again from Dan Sullivan, because he's often said to me, "Take back your agency." And I didn't know what he meant. And it had to do with, he clearly saw I had a log sticking out of my head that I couldn't see. And that's what AI has given me a gift of, is I see the world through a completely different place. And that doesn't mean I'm right, but I do think that I haven't witnessed one person who didn't experience a massive aha experience when they had a sprint experience, when something profound happened and their consciousness shifted.
Yeah.
And that's what I hope for you as a result of either this conversation or working together, or whatever form that may come in. So, and thank you. I do not take this for granted, your opportunity to give me access to your platform. It means the world to me, Charles. You are an amazing human.
Hey, well, together we're better, brother. Together we're better.
Yes.
That wraps up today's episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. This is Charles Gaudette with my dear friend Mike Koenigs, and I will see you in another episode.